92.7 FM's news now.
A new addition to the TBI's top 10 most wanted list is believed to be armed and dangerous and on the loose. David Evans Jr. is from Kentucky, but he's wanted in Tennessee after deputies say he fired at them and evaded arrest. The last round of interviews for the new superintendent of county schools is beginning today. Dr. Wayne Johnson will be interviewed this week. Final decision is set for June the 15th. The names of the two men who were found dead over the weekend in Ringgold have been released: 16-year-old Montana Witten and 20-year-old Adam Alleghi. Their deaths seem to have happened on Sunday at a home on Post Oak Road in Ringgold when Witten's mother broke down his bedroom door and found the two men dead inside. Investigators believe it was a drug overdose. A medical examiner will make a final decision, but that could take weeks. A Riverside Drive between Martin Luther King Boulevard westbound and the Veterans Bridge. It's going to be closed for the festival. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree? Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM, and 95.3 HD4. News, talk, sports. Nooga Radio. Now, the smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, Tennessee, David Tulis.
We have had a couple of weak months for the schedule for geoengineering in the Chattanooga area. We had a weak month in January. There were only 7 days in which we were treated to the toxic plumes, which are deposited as part of the secret military jurisdiction sky management program, weather management program, under the rubric. If you read the academic literature, the rubric is very swaggering and very noble, and that would be solar radiation management and stratospheric aerosol geoengineering, SAG. Those are the terms that are bandied about as if they mean something. Solar radiation management suggests that we can manage the radiative aspects of the planet, the albedo. Albedo is simply the word for reflectivity. So if you have more clouds, you have more albedo. And in the simpleton's way of thinking that often we can see exhibited in the press, a brighter planet means a cooler planet, right? We have more clouds and more sun reflected off of the white skin, the white dome, if you will, then will be a cooler planet. We fight global warming by just depositing the proper material in the sky in the millions of tons, no doubt, to make sure the planet is reflective, and we will be saved from ourselves. We'll be saved by the use of official pollution from the damage caused by unofficial and regulated pollution from highways, factories, and birthing rooms and hospitals, where every human being is a polluter. Every human being, even in the act of delivery, creates a carbon footprint. Think of all the bandage. Think of all the paper material, the plastic bottles of medication and so on that are used in a birth. The sheets have to be washed. All the energy that goes into washing those sheets, every child that appears is a hazard, and so we have to account for that. If we just reduce all these hazards, in fact, reduce population maybe down to 500 or 600 million, we will be sustainable. That's kind of the thinking. Various factions of the pro geoengineering crowd, David Keith of Harvard being perhaps the most notable proponent of this. And in fact, since nothing's being done to save the planet, absolutely nothing, he's proposing in the Tucson area to have a very small test with a high-flying balloon depositing some sulfates, some sulfate particles like little dust specks, right, in the high atmosphere, and seeing if there's any weather effect. When I read the story about that, I think in the Harvard Alumnus magazine, I thought, man, it's just so funny to try to figure out what the real story is, and all these narratives that seem to be suggesting that we need to do something, and if we don't do something now, we're not sure where the planet's going, whether it's global warming or global cooling. So not sure we'll just call it climate change so we cover our bases. Whether it's getting cooler or warmer, we can always say that, well, we're there fighting climate change, and we want there to be a stagnant weather system. We want things to just come to an absolute stop. And that's not quite what happens when you have geoengineering. We have these artificial clouds, and I've got the year rated for you here. If you just hang on for a second, I can rate 2017 as far as delivery of the proper material. We have we bring things to an absolute stop. And I say that because when you have artificial clouds, if you have a lot of aerosolized particulate matter, as we're having today in the skies over Hamilton County, Tennessee, you have a slowing down of things. You have the wind slows down, right? And evaporation rates slow down. Globally, these are all slower, and they affect wind turbines. They affect what happens over at Tennessee Solar Solutions and the marketing of solar panels with the little tax chit. All these things are slowed down by the clogging of the airwaves, the clogging of the airwaves. Now, this is David Tulis. I'm glad you're giving me just a couple minutes of your time here at Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and FM 92.7. Here's the data for the arc. This is scientific data, and it comes from me, and that's because I have very important scientific instruments built into my body, namely 2 sets of eyes that I think they're bluish gray, and they allow me to record with my hand in my calendar, my red appointment calendar, which I'll have with me all the time. And in June, we've had thus far 4 days of sky striping, and that would be we had it on the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 6th. You skipped a couple days there, and that's today. Today is the 6th. Now in May we had 5 days. It was a very slow month for May. The jets were busy elsewhere. Maybe the supply dump of coal fly ash used to fill these jet tank pods needed to be resupplied by some major third-party or fifth-party purchases from utilities such as TVA. Hadn't filled up the supply stockpile, so we only had 5 days in May. In April, the 3 months before were pretty standard. Okay, April had 10 days of sky striping, March 10, February had 11, and January it's almost as if the deep state said, we got this new president. Let's just kind of hold off for just a little while and see what happens. So January had only 7 days of what's commonly called chemtrailing. I don't call it chemtrailing because that's just a fighting term. And if you call it that, you sound like you're taking sides. I don't take sides in this. I just write about what I see and write about the scientific literature. And you won't find any media platform in Chattanooga except mine that gives this story any credit. I give it credit because I believe in my scientific data, and I take a lot of pictures. If you go to Nooganomics.com, you'll find gallery after gallery globally, and a lot of shots from Hickson, Saudi Daisy, some from downtown, of phenomenal sky striping visitations. That's what you could call them. Negative pollution, invert pollution, where the incoherence of government is simply to be accepted. You can't think there's anything wrong with this. Okay? If you do, you're just a bit naive. And that would be this. The EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, regulates coal fly ash emissions extremely. Right, Tennessee Valley Authority and other utilities have to fight with limestone scrubbers and other scrubbers cleaning the ash that comes off of burning coal. The dirtier the coal, the more the ash, the more the sulfur content of the ash. And so that has to be fought by expensive scrubbing systems. On the other hand, another division of the same uncle, right? Uncle's left hand is doing one thing, but his right hand is doing just the opposite, and that is to pour millions of tons of coal fly ash, which is very white and micro. It's micro. These are micron-sized particles, finer than baby powder in your crotch. Okay, finer than that, and it stays up in the air for days and days and days. Some streams of coal fly ash deposited by jets can stay up for months. And especially if it's been treated electrically, it probably has different qualities. So in June, there were 4 days, including today, May 5, April 10, March 10, February 11 days, and in January, unsure of the new president, there were only 7 days of geoengineering. Mike Steele here from the radio station is going to be giving and having an interview at 1 today here on our station. It'll be on the climate change fraud and scam. A local notable in the weather field will be here at Nooga Radio. Do tune in, tell a friend about it here at Nooga Radio at 1 o'clock. That's just after lunch. We're going to have a great little interview about the fraud and scam of climate change. This is David Tulis, and we're brought to you by Jim McCoon Law Firm, McCoon Law, where Clay Whitaker is the sharpest attorney in town. I think he's the only certified criminal specialist in Chattanooga, and that's a remarkable achievement in that field to have that classification. That's Clay Whitaker. Clay Whitaker. Call him for anything that you have for what you have need. A story on how your uncle is becoming your mom and dad. TV3, and it's about how the USDA is planning to serve more than 200 million free meals to children at approved summer food service program locations. I went to the website. I just couldn't. I typed in 37343 for Hickston, just couldn't get any results. So maybe my browser was having a bad morning. And maybe I'll tell you later about that. But you go to the location if you're under 18, you get free food all summer. This is just wonderful. I'm just amazed. I'm just amazed. And my heart is highly thankful, highly thankful for the good people doling out floor. This is part of the food cost floor that the government establishes. Your prices can't go below a certain amount. If it does, we'll buy it from you, right? And then what do we do with it? Well, we got acres and acres of cheese and wheat and things, so we're gonna give it away to the poor, and we'll look good doing it. We'll look like we really care about the poor. Now, there's a story in the Chattanooga Times-Free Press this morning about the Mayor's Council on Women, and they are indignant at the payday loan industry. Councilwoman Carol Burrs is the chair. She's not the chairwoman. She's the chair of the Mayor's Women's Council. And she says that as the story puts it, the 460% annual interest charge allowed in Tennessee for payday loans is ridiculous, and contributes to the states being the number one host, if you will, for these parasites in the payday loan industry. She's quoted by the newspaper saying people get trapped, and too many people are using payday loans not for emergencies, but for ongoing living expenses. Well, these people are, of course, foolish customers, and they're victims of their own circumstances, and perhaps of their own improvidence as well, right? Their own inability to be provident, right? To be as God is. God has providence. God's providence makes all things happen, right? Nothing happens by chance. There is no such thing as an accident. God is lovingly providential, and He makes His will occur in what the Protestant Church likes to consider as His providential decree, His eternal decree about things. And that's because God is not in time; He's outside of time. So He can look at the telescope of time from the end rather than from the side, and so He sees all things as if they were in the same moment, and thereby arranges things by accounting for and using and arranging the free will of all human beings who they do have free will. They have will to do what suits them, and God uses all these things for His providence. That's called providence. So people are improvident. They don't plan out, right? They don't save. They're not thrifty. They're not wary of the future, and so they are hard pressed. Many are hard pressed just because we live in a paper money economy, right? We live in an economy, a government-centered, intentionally dysfunctional economy in which free money and free credit serves those in the upper 0.5% of the elite. And they're the ones who are making a vast killing, while here in Chattanooga, we proles have our livings dwindling daily, and the power of our dollar dwindling daily, thanks to the banking sector. and the Federal Reserve System. Andy Burke says that petty lending has tremendous influence in the General Assembly, and he's quoted by the Chattanooga Times Free Press in today's editions. There is not a lobby for citizens. We want to make sure that people speak up and let their voice be heard, and that people are aware of how these loans can hurt individuals, families, and neighborhoods. Now, there's a fairness in this story, pointing out that these loans are not intended to be operating expenses of your family, right? These are things that are to get you to the next payday. They are very short-term loans for a week or two. And so if you have a petty loan stretched out over a year, of course you're going to get an extraordinary percentage rate. But that's not what they're intended for. They're never intended for that. No one would submit to an annual interest rate of 500%. It's just these are kind of scare tactics to besmirch a legitimate market service, which is the petty loan industry. The story mentions a study by the Federal Reserve official, and it's a decade old, 2007, but it says that people who don't use petty loan businesses have huge bounce check problems. So you have one parasite feeding people who are fleeing the damages of another parasite. That would be the banking sector. Payday credit, says Donald Morgan, as expensive as it is still cheaper than a close substitute, bounce check protection, sold by credit unions and banks. So you have this sector, the only sector in the economy, the banking sector, which can make money from nothing. And people who are in the banking system as customers and others, they say, well, the payday loan industry, these are just parasites and predators. This is predatory lending. Well, by and large, as I've pointed out to people I've met in the payday lending industry, they use existing money, right? The payday loan people companies may borrow for operational expenses. They may have lines of credit, and they may have private bonds put on the debt markets, but they don't have the power to make credit from nothing, as the banking sector does, using their fractional reserve. So petty loans are really more honorable than banks, and they're more honorable than credit unions and savings and loans. And here's why. Here's why. You're not going to get this analysis anywhere else, but you'll get it from me, David Tulis. And that is that they use existing money. They don't create new money in the lending process, which is a process that has the whole country reeling drunkenly in a wild party of credit. And everybody at that party is so optimistic about the future. People are just thinking grand thoughts there on the balcony. They're thinking, man, I can get loans at nothing, and I can make a killing in this market. I can make a killing by developing that part of town. I can put in a nursing home here and make a 40% profit in 6 years. That kind of thing, right? That's all because of the easy money. In fact, there's a story in today's editions of the newspaper that talks about overbuilding on North Shore. Well, of course there's overbuilding on North Shore. People are getting their senses about them. Hey, if money's cheap and we represent a major interest, we can lend money down into the hinterlands at a great profit to ourselves. And the middle guy and the guy at the end there, the developer, he can make a little bit more too. And we are shoveling credit. We're shoveling, not quite helicopter money, but we're shoveling easy money into the economy and making a killing up here at the top. That's where the big houses make their huge profits that way. And down here in Chattanooga and Hamilton County, we can eke out a little bit of profit riding shotgun on this tide of credit. The petty loan industry doesn't have the advantage of doing that. It can't make money from nothing. It uses existing capital and serves the bottom end of the market. Very high risk clients. Very high risk clients. People who should not be borrowing at all. And that's why the charges are so high. And these are very short term loans. And that's why these people pay a lot in interest for the short term. That's because they're very high risk. And so do you think, let me ask you this, when's the last time you heard of a lawsuit by Check Into Cash in Cleveland hounding somebody for non-payment? You don't. Those lawsuits are not filed against non-payment, okay? The money, the amounts are too small. And so the rates are high to account for all the losses that Check Into Cash in Cleveland has to endure. Check Into Cash is a profitable business. It's in many many parts of the country, and it has a very highly advanced model with predictive software to look at the background of each applicant. And each applicant looked at, you might say, by the numbers only, is evaluated as to his risk. And so that's how loans are extended. Listen, Mike Steele today at 1 o'clock on this radio station, our multimedia platform here in Hickson and Saudi Daisy, is going to be having an interview with a noted local person, a noted local weather personality. And he's a meteorologist and a scientist. This individual whom we are going to be interviewing is a scientist as well as a well-known voice in the weather field. And the issue is one that's compelling. It's compelling to me, and I hope you tune in here on Nooga Radio, and that is the climate change fraud. Climate change is a fraud and a scam. If you can't get to the radio, then make sure you just keep us on YouTube at the Hot News Talk Radio channel. Also at Facebook. We're on Facebook at Nooga Radio. Now, this is David Tulis here, and we're focusing on some news stories, and probably the biggest story of the day is my simply Googling the following usage into my search window, and it is unmarked car Tennessee law, unmarked police car Tennessee law. And from what I can tell, looking at the Tennessee Code annotated, Chattanooga City Police don't have authority to have unmarked cars in traffic. I've seen in the past 2 weeks, I have seen suddenly, it's just now happened. We'll have to get the details from Victor Miller, the police department spokesman, or Chief Fletcher. We're seeing nice cars are stopping others on the side of the road, flashing lights. These are cars that are unmarked. They're secret police cars. They're secret police cars in Chattanooga, run by Andy Burke. Andy Burke is the mayor, and these are his people. They serve the executive branch. And I'm looking at the Tennessee Code 88219. Only sheriff's department cars are exempt from apparently a ban on unmarked cars. Only sheriffs may do that. We'll find out more in the next few days.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Picture that curl of steam rising from your